President Trump's longtime political advisor, Roger Stone, pled not guilty to 7 criminal charges brought up by special counsel Robert Mueller. But the acting attorney general says that Mueller's investigation is not done yet. For more on Roger Stone's case, we go to Jessica Schneider.
Roger Stone uncharacteristically quiet on his way out of D.C. federal court, but still managing to flash his Nixon-esque victory sign. He quickly called into InfoWars to tell host Alex Jones, a man known for his conservative conspiracy theories, why he didn't talk.
I wanted very much to go outside and make a statement, but I was shouted down by crazed leftists who, of course, revere the First Amendment, and some members of the media shouting insulting questions before I could say a word.
Inside court, Stone only uttered the words, "Yes, Your Honor," and "I do," while answering the magistrate judge's questions. Stone's defense attorney entered his not guilty plea. Stone's case has turned into a spectacle.
The only thing worse than being talked about is not being talked about.
He spoke on the steps of the Florida courthouse Friday.
I never discussed these matters with the president. Tune in to some of the shows tonight.
And went on a media blitz over the weekend. Stone faces 7 counts of obstruction, false statements, and witness tampering, all related to Robert Mueller's Russia probe. He'll be out on a $250,000 bond while his case moves through the court, but under strict conditions. He can't have contact with any witnesses in the case, can't have a passport, and can't travel outside D.C., Virginia, Florida, or New York. He'll also have to check in with probation every week by phone. And in a possible sign Mueller's work might be winding down, a prosecutor for the U.S. Attorney's Office in D.C. handled the court appearance today instead of someone from Mueller's team. That could signal Mueller's team might not see Stone's case through to any trial, leaving it to another part of the Justice Department instead.
Right now, the investigation is, I think, close to being completed, and I hope that we can get the report from Director Mueller as soon as possible.
The acting attorney general made this seemingly off-the-cuff comment at an unrelated press conference Monday, prompting a cascade of criticism on Capitol Hill.
I think it's inappropriate for the acting attorney general to be commenting on an ongoing criminal investigation under his auspices.
Despite the government reopening last week, the shutdown continues to affect students in the OC community. For more, we go to Becca Koshorik.
I am very proud to announce today that we have reached a deal to end the shutdown and reopen the federal government.
While the government shutdown came to a halt with President Trump's announcement of a temporary reopening on Friday, millions of Americans across the country are still left hurting. Students at Oklahoma Christian University are no exception. I sat down with senior Carly Spencer, whose family was affected by the shutdown.
Well, so my dad is currently unemployed, so my mom's the only one with an income right now. And so without her income, it was kind of a struggle, especially because it was right after Christmas. And Christmas time is kind of just an expensive time. And so it's kind of like the month without money was kind of a struggle there, just with bills and everything.
I want to thank all of the incredible federal workers and their amazing families who have shown such extraordinary devotion in the face of this recent hardship.
President Trump stated his gratitude for the families that went without income during the shutdown, but many, like the Spencer family, remain frustrated at how long it has taken to reopen the government.
My mom understands why it's happening, and I think that she is okay with it, but she's frustrated because it's taking so much time. And I know that when I talk to her about just how things are going, she always addresses how the two sides can't communicate with each other very well. And so I think in that sense, it's just been really frustrating to watch it unfold.
For Eagle Angle, I'm Becca Koshorik.
In a recent U.S. intelligence meeting, top officials gathered to discuss the greatest threats to national security, and some topics contradicted recent claims by the president. We go to Karen Kaifa for more.
The Trump administration says ISIS has been defeated. A top U.S. intelligence official says it's still a threat.
ISIS is intent on resurging and still commands thousands of fighters in Iraq and Syria.
Director of National Intelligence Dan Coates, CIA Director Gina Haspel, and FBI Director Christopher Wray on Capitol Hill for an annual hearing outlining the greatest threats to U.S. interests. And with President Trump planning a second summit with North Korea's Kim Jong-un, Coates said the regime appears unlikely to give up its nuclear stockpiles.
Its leaders ultimately view nuclear weapons as critical to regime survival. Our assessment is bolstered by our observations of some activity that is inconsistent with full denuclearization.
The officials also said Russians use social media to try to meddle in the 2018 midterm elections, and other foreign actors may eye similar tactics for 2020. They also said China appears to be strengthening its relationship with Russia. FBI Director Christopher Wray described the Chinese counterintelligence threat as
more vexing, more challenging, more comprehensive, and more concerning than any counterintelligence threat I can think of.
Wray also said his agency is still assessing the overall impact of the partial government shutdown.
What's quite clear is that it was incredibly negative and painful for the 37,000 men and women of the FBI and their families.
FBI agents were among those on the job without pay during the 35-day stretch. In Washington, I'm Karen Kaifa.
Civil unrest continues to rise in Venezuela as protesters, including Venezuelan military defectors, have called on the support of the United States. We go to Nick Patton-Walsh, who has more on the subject.
Wednesday's protests in Caracas, called by the opposition, a key test really. Will they pass without bloodshed, violence? Will they show support on the streets, enduring support for Juan Guaido, the opposition leader who's declared himself interim president and is now in charge of many of the Venezuelan bank accounts sanctioned by the United States? He has a lot of international recognition, but also too, Nicolas Maduro, the president there in Venezuela, has a lot of military support. But we've been hearing from Venezuelan army defectors here outside the country that they want assistance, arms from the United States so they can foment an uprising inside Venezuela. Here's what they had to say.
As Venezuelan soldiers, we're making a request to the US, he says, to support us in logistical terms, with communication, with weapons, so we can realize Venezuelan freedom.
The US very conspicuously trying to up the feeling of the possibility of military action around Venezuela. The National Security Advisor John Bolton walking around very conspicuously holding a notepad with the phrase 5,000 troops to Colombia on it. Well, here in Bogota, we don't get any indication that's imminent at all, but I think it adds to the broad sense that Washington aren't letting go of this particular conflict, it's fair to say. They're upping sanctions, they're upping the rhetoric around every option potentially being on the table. Will that shatter the military clique around Nicolas Maduro? Will it deprive the Maduro government of the billions that it really needs to cling on to power, to keep people loyal to it? We'll have to wait and see, but the real key test at the moment is whether the protests on Wednesday pass peacefully. Nick Patton-Walsh, CNN, Bogota.